But it's a bit, I mean, it's just 11 days to the elections. Why wait till this point?
I mean, I guess that's the whole point at the end of the day. Certain, from what we have seen in Nigeria's politics, certain people are known as spoilers, or certain people could be considered as stooges who, maybe for strategy's sake or for whatever reason, could be in some parties and pretend to be members of that party, and then at the last minute...
But then they end up confusing the voters, because, I mean, you come to someone, all this while you've been campaigning that, you've been campaigning a particular party or particular parties, and then you've been campaigning for your party, saying that maybe you're better and all of that, and then 10 days to the election, 11 days you become...
I think it's all part of the plan. It's all part of the game.
To confuse the voters.
Yes, I think it's all part of it, because, there are people who are cashing out big time by doing such things. There are people who, from the word go, know that they are not going to be standing for any election, but they will come, they will buy the ticket, they will stand as, candidate of so-and-so party. At the end of the day, you see, this person has dropped for this person and moved to another party and things like that. So it's almost normal with Nigerian politics. And that is
why in the past, politicians of the major parties have never taken the third force very seriously, because they always felt that, they are there to just negotiate, as it were. Although this time it appears different, though.
Yeah, well, we'll see how it turns out in the coming days.
Yeah, coming days.
I mean,
no more
the
weeks or
PDP is having
like
its own, dealing with its own, the APC, the Labour Party, virtually all the parties are having one form of issue or the other. And
it's not Uhuru for any one of them.
How it goes. And also today is Valentine's Day for some. Some people will be celebrating.
My red glasses?
Well, we'll see. A lot of people are looking forward to hanging out with their friends, their loved ones, to celebrate Valentine's Day.
But I just do hope that, in the past, on the 15th, when you're driving past, you see accidents and all of that. So I do hope that this time around they celebrate with caution and actually celebrate the essence of Valentine. Yes. Although, that has been overtaken by different, over the years it has been turned into whatever, but the real essence to show love to everyone.
Exactly.
Especially now that there's scarcity, you can give somebody 2K, 3K.
Urgent 2K.
Urgent 2K.
Well, we'll see out of that. Show love, and love indeed, not just by words. We'll take a look at some of the headlines. Stella, do the honors.
Yeah, we'll start with Wike vs. Atiku, PDP suspends presidential rally in Rivers. We also have Naira scarcity. Again, Buhari meets Emefiele at Aso Rock. Also, police detain pastor who stormed pulpit with AK-47. Now let's take a look at the details. The Presidential Campaign Council of Atiku Okowa in Rivers State has cancelled the rally scheduled for February 14, 2023. Senator Lee Maiba, who spoke on behalf of the Campaign Council in Port Harcourt on Monday, said the rally would no longer hold in Rivers because of security reasons. Maiba said Atiku Abubakar, the presidential candidate, informed the team that he does not want any bloodshed in Rivers State, hence the decision to cancel the rally. Recall that last week, chairman of PDP Presidential Campaign Council in Rivers, Dr. Abiye Sekibo, was attacked in Port Harcourt. Sekibo had accused policemen attached to Rivers State Government House of being behind the incident, but Governor Nyesom Wike denied it. President Muhammadu Buhari held another meeting with the governor of the Central Bank of Nigeria, Godwin Emefiele, at the State House, Abuja, on Monday. This is Emefiele's third private meeting with the president since the cash crunch crisis escalated across the country. The raging controversy over the implementation of the new currency design policy has not subsided. Last Friday, the Council of State had backed the new currency redesign policy, but advised the Central Bank of Nigeria to ensure the availability of Naira notes to douse tension and ameliorate the suffering of citizens across the country. The governor, however, did not speak to journalists after the meeting. Pastor Uche Aigbe of the House on the Rock Church, Abuja, is currently being detained by the Federal Capital Territory Police Command. A source told Daily Trust that the pastor arrived at the Guzape office of the anti-crime unit of the police on Monday morning in company of the policeman from whom he collected the rifle he mounted the pulpit with. The pastor caused a stir during Sunday service when he mounted the pulpit with the rifle. Earlier, Olumoyiwa Adejobi, first police relations officer, had said the pastor had case to answer. In a series of tweets, Adejobi said AK-47 rifle falls under the prohibited firearms in Nigeria, and only certain law enforcement officers were allowed to carry it. He said he had forwarded complaints over the pastor's action to the FCT Police Commissioner to act. Now let's take a look at some packages. The Independent National Electoral Commission says the forthcoming general election will not hold in 240 polling units across 28 states and the Federal Capital Territory for not having registered voters. The INEC chairman Mahmoud Yakubu, at a meeting with the national leaders of political parties on Abuja Monday, said that the February and March election will now hold in 176,606 polling units. Noel Sampson was at the venue and this report.
Yakubu recalled that in 2021, the Commission successfully expanded the number of polling units from 119,973 to the current figure of 176,846. He said that efforts were also made to distribute voters to the polling units in order to avoid the congestion that made voting cumbersome in many of the polling units nationwide.
There are 240 polling units without registered voters spread across 28 states and the Federal Capital Territory. They range from 1 polling unit to 12 polling units in each state and the FCT, except Taraba and Imo states, with 34 and 38 polling units respectively. No new registrants choose the polling units and no voters indicated interest to transfer to them during the last continuous voter registration exercise, mainly for security reasons. From the feedback we received from our officials and accredited voters following the recent nationwide mock accreditation using the beavers, it is clear that some voters could not easily identify their polling units. This must not happen on election day. Consequently, the Commission is advising voters to confirm the locations of their polling units through a dedicated portal linked to our website. In addition, all voters who have been assigned to new polling units will receive text messages from the Commission indicating their polling units. We have also compiled the register of such voters, and our state offices will give it wide publicity, especially for those who may not have provided their telephone numbers during voter registration or those whose numbers may have changed.
The National Chairman, Inter-Party Advisory Council IPAC, Yagbagi Sani, appealed to INEC to ensure that general election hold as scheduled. Sani would reaffirm the Council's confidence in the leadership of INEC for its consistent demonstration of diligence, urged the Commission to make the general elections credible.
2023 general elections seemingly will be a watershed in the history of elections in Nigeria. Today, the tide has changed because an unknown party could pull a surprise to the greatest chagrin of all. From this point of view, it is necessary to advise INEC to keep its date with history, which must not be wasted.
Meanwhile, the United States Assistant Secretary of State for Bureau of African Affairs, Molly Fee, and the U.S. Ambassador to Nigeria, Mary Beth Leonard, have visited the Commission's headquarters, where the Assistant Secretary of State restated the importance of having a peaceful election.
I do want to make clear that the United States does not back any candidate or party. We back the process. We back democracy.
On the ongoing electionary campaigns, Yakubu expressed INEC concerns about the violent attacks on supporters of political parties across board and appealed to the leaders of political parties to continue to call their candidates and supporters to order. Noel Sampson, Trust TV News, Abuja.
All right, now, New Nigeria People's Party and the All Progressives Congress are trading words over campaign violence in Kano State. Addressing a news conference, State Chairman of the NNPP, Haruna Dogwa, urged security agencies to call the ruling APC to order to ensure violence-free campaign activities. Trust TV correspondent Idris Jibrin reports.
Addressing reporters over what he called harassment and intimidation of his party supporters and officials, Chairman of the New Nigeria People's Party in Kano, Haruna Doguwa, accused the ruling APC of promoting violence campaign ahead of the February 25th and March 11th elections.
With the election drawing closer by the day, Kano State government is faced with the reality of imminent defeat at the polls. It has therefore devised a devilish means of manipulating election through attack and intimidation of members of the opposition parties, using primarily political thugs and some police personnel who ordinarily ought to be apolitical in the discharge of their responsibility. 11 days after the unfortunate attack on the country home of one of our leading members who served as Director of Intelligence and Strategy, Barrister Muhimaga Jidimungado, which occurred at Trimungado local government after the visit of our gubernatorial candidate, Abubakar Yusuf, the police were seen raiding his residence again at around 9:30 p.m. on Tuesday 7th.
But a statement released by the APC gubernatorial campaign spokesman Muhammad Garba says his party is fully committed to peaceful campaigning, unlike the opposition NNPP, which he says is resorting to violence. According to the New Nigeria People's Party, however, supporters of the All Progressive Congress have repeatedly attacked their supporters and intimidated several members of the party, especially during their campaign rallies across the state.
The police who failed to receive and treat the complaint of NNPP members of Dambata, Take, and Moko government have now resorted to harassment and intimidation of our members, including some candidates of the party, campaign spokespersons, social media activists, and the Director General of the campaign, Dr. Ali Abubakar Ali Haruna Makoda. We are not unaware of the plans by the APC-led administration in Kano State to frame our members in the build-up to election in order to intimidate them and pave way for election rigging.
Be that as it may, these political parties have tasks to accomplish and electoral promises to deliver if they are to gain the confidence of the electorate in Kano, who will head to the polls in few days' time. Idris Jubrain, Trust TV News, Kano.
Thank you, Idris Jibril, for that report. Over now to Gombe State, where the candidate of the All Progressive Congress, Asiwaju Ahmed Tinubu, is promising to complete the Kolmani project if elected in the general elections. He made the pledge at the Pantami Stadium during the party's campaign rally. Let's take the report.
The APC presidential candidate who arrived the state through the Lawanti International Airport first paid homage to the Emir of Gombe, Abubakar Shehu Abubakar, accompanied by Governor Inwahia, other APC governors and officials. Addressing crowd of supporters at the Pantami Stadium, the APC presidential candidate promised to ensure successful completion of the Kolmani oil exploration project, as he vowed to improve agriculture and education across the country.
Development is here now. For several years, we've tried to find oil. Now, for money, has given you the resources and access to commence effective training and development of the petroleum lubricants in Kobani and other places.
The APC National Chairman Abdullahi Adamu and Gombe State Governor Inwahia urged the people of Gombe to vote APC candidates at all levels. Either today or tomorrow, vote for the APC from top to bottom. Victory is from God. No surrender. Gombe State has been in PDP's grip since 2003, before the incumbent Governor Inwahia of the APC got elected. In 2019, he is seeking re-election on the APC platform. From Gombe, Ibrahim Ismail reporting for Trust TV.
Now, the federal government says it is determined to ensure that every kobo spent tracked and accounted for as part of efforts to strengthen transparent and institutional accountability in Nigeria. Minister for State Budget and National Planning, Clem Agba, stated this at a dialogue to sensitize national and subnational stakeholders on the importance of the national monitoring and evaluation policy embedded into the women economic empowerment in Nigeria. Take a look.
Despite increased commitment and allocation to women economic empowerment programs as well as other projects and policies in Nigeria, there remains an existing gap among ministries, departments and agencies at federal and state levels implementing these programs without performance monitoring indicators and no scientific framework for assessment of performance for socioeconomic benefits to the people.
We are not insisting that agencies must be created. The departments which are currently running the program or and the projects and performing the role of M&E should be given some level of independence for them to perform their responsibilities. Subsuming them into a structure that makes them makes it very difficult for them to operate is the issue that we're raising.
We have disaggregated data that can help us to have indicators of how these policies and programs actually affect women and impact on the process of women's economic empowerment.
The Ministry of Finance, Budget and National Planning says the National Development Plan document 2021 to 2025 had provisions for monitoring and evaluation, while the federal government upgraded its monitoring and evaluation framework by involving citizens in its projects by creating the iMark app, launched last December.
Ministries, departments and agencies are to coordinate M&E functions across departments and related agencies, prepare a performance improvement plan based on the findings and recommendations of the monitoring report. They will prepare quarterly and biannual reports on the performance of the respective MDAs and submit such reports to the National M&E Department.
Stakeholders are deliberating on strategies that will facilitate the acceptance and implementation of the National Monitoring and Evaluation Policy on Women's Economic Empowerment.
We are ready to work with the government and other partners to strengthen data collection, especially disaggregated data, and other monitoring and evaluation activities to aid evidence-based decision-making.
We talk about customer centrism, we talk about engaging, we talk about data centrism. It has both populations and especially women at the center. So it's a policy that I am happy to take back to the Federal Inland Revenue.
The National Monitoring and Evaluation Policy launch is designed to provide a standardized monitoring and evaluation of projects to empower citizens to track the implementation of investments at the national and sub-national levels. Aisha Salihu, Trust TV News, Abuja.
Thank you, Aisha Saliu, for that report. With that, we'll go for a very short break. When we return, the show continues. Please stay.
That's great.
TV, documenting the Nigerian story.
Not necessarily tribal or regional.
All right, welcome back. It's Daybreak on Trust Television. Time to take a look at the dailies on Daybreak, and we will begin with the Daily Trust newspaper this morning. Now, the lead story on the Daily Trust newspaper, still talking about the cash crunch. It says, banks ignore Supreme Court, reject old notes. It has the riders that says, ask customers to go to CBN. Now, filling stations, supermarkets accept only new currency. Apex Bank issued 400 billion naira new notes, EFCC chair. Silence by Buhari, CBN recipe for chaos. So you find all the details of that on page 4. Now, you would also see above the lead story, Wike Atiku feud. PDP suspends presidential rally in Rivers State. That's on page 8. Campaign activities forces import to drop by 30%, says Stone on page 21. Southwest LP members dump Obi, declare support for Tinubu. That's on page 8. And then also you would find the pictorial there showing you President Buhari and others during the commissioning of strategic and operational equipment for officers at Force Headquarters in Abuja. And that was yesterday. You have beside that farmers, herders, clashes. Sultan haps on dialogue. You'd find all that on page 25. Kano man asked for 10 million naira to grant divorce. And that's on page 16. And then 26,500 people petition Chrisland School over students' death on page 6. Also, other stories, elections. You are being watched, Buhari tells security agencies. Odua agitators. And then you have IPOP bandits activities threat to polls says IGP, and also orders CPs to keep Amotekun, Ebubeagu, CJTF under surveillance. That's on page 5 of the Daily Trust newspaper. You also have 11 days to go to the election. Kwankwaso in Kontagora urges voters to reject old order. Fulani Group endorses Kola Abiola, boasts of 7 million votes. I will continue oil exploration in Komani, and that's according to the APC presidential candidate Bola Tinubu. These are the major stories on Daily Trust this morning.
Now let's take a look at the Punch newspaper. Still on the Naira. Naira deadline. Banks, fill stations reject old notes, ignores Supreme Court order. And we have the first rider. Buhari Emefiele meet again as old Naira deposits hit over 2 trillion Naira. POS operators, depositors panic, flood banking halls with old currency. Film marketers blame banks, courts turn back lawyers with expired money. And then we have Buhari launches security equipment, wants pleas against politics. And we have the pictorial there showing the event which took place yesterday. And beneath that, we have Whitney. Protesters besiege Chrisland as government orders inquest. AK-47 bearing pastor arrested. Policeman faces probe. Church apologizes. Breach. Data Bureau probes 110 companies. And just by the masthead, we have, I regret raising coup alarm. This is coming from Femi Fani Kayode. And then above the masthead, North will benefit greatly from Kolmani oil field, Tinubu. Share love on Valentine's Day, not HIV. This is coming from NACA. Atiku Rivers rally cancelled to prevent deaths, PDP. These are the major stories on the Punch newspaper for today.
All right, on this day newspaper, the lead story says 11 days to presidential poll. All eyes on you, Buhari charges Nigeria police. It says INEC expresses concern about violent attacks on supports of political parties. Says elections won't hold in 240 polling units. INEC declares it commissions finalizing issuance of 1,642,386 identification tags for agents. You also would have above the lead story, Sultan, we need to douse tension. People are hungry and angry. You have also at the top, at the very top, despite Supreme Court's experte order, old Naira notes lose legitimacy. Court rejects old banknotes for filing cases. Vested interest resisting currency redesign, says CBN MPC member. You have maintains commercial banks mismanaging distribution process, give order on recirculation of old notes. Groups urge Buhari. So these are some of the major stories on this day newspaper today.
Now let's take a look at what The Nation has on its front page today. It has a lead story still on the Naira. Naira crisis has brought anger, says Sultan. The first rider, Monarch asks president to take action. The second rider, banks reject old notes, shut out customers. And above that, we have, just beneath the masthead, we have Naira policy. Has Supreme Court ruling been complied with? This is an analysis. And then above that, we have Tinubu vows to translate Kolmani oil to prosperity. Why polls won't hold in 240 units by INEC? These are the major stories on The Nation newspaper today.
All right, and on The Guardian newspaper, again, Buhari meets Emefiele, keeps mum on Naira swap. You have CBN embrace e-Naira, internet banking as alternatives to cash. Apex Bank loses 15 billion Naira to hoarding, explains how to exchange old notes. BDCs profit from Naira scarcity, a lower exchange rate for cash transaction. Ikbazu worried about cash scarcity on traders in Abia, commissioner says. Niger governor orders police to arrest anyone rejecting old notes. You also would have above that, police claim Odudua agitators amassing weapons to disrupt polls. You have unloaded gun. Church restates commitment to peace. Valentine's Day. Google Trends show Nigeria leads in search for love in 2023. Well, that's quite an interesting story there. You'd want to find the details to that on page 3. Ganduje Mukhtar canvass ranching as Sultan decries politicization of farmer herder clashes. CSO's march for removal of Bawa as EFCC chair. You'd find that on page 4. These are the main stories on the Guardian newspaper today. And that's the last story there. We'll be taking perspectives on these stories. We have Dr. Theophilus Abba with us in the studio, the director of the Daily Trust Foundation, to give perspectives to some of the stories. Good morning, Doctor. Welcome to the program.
Good morning. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to be here again.
All right.
Talk about what's happening in Nigeria.
Yeah, well, it's 11 days to the elections. Quite a lot is happening. The president seemed to be matching his words with action as to leaving a legacy of a free, fair and transparent election. Yesterday we saw him commission some strategic and operational equipment for the Nigeria police. He's also charging them to be neutral, like he has done for the upteenth time. He's saying that all eyes are on the security officials, and he's ordering CPs to keep Amotekun, well, the IG rather, is ordering CPs to keep Amotekun, Abibuagu, CJTF under surveillance and the rest of them. So in terms of securing this election and making sure that we have a transparent election, do you think that all these things will be enough to make sure that we have a safe, free and fair election? We've seen attacks on oppositions in some instances.
Well, I think this election will be very challenging because it's an election that is taking place in an atmosphere of insecurity. Maybe we need to qualify that because in several parts of the country, we still hear of attacks, and killings and all those. Like INEC came out yesterday to say about 240 polling units will not vote.
Yes. But because there are no registered voters in those polling.
Yes, but there are no registered. Apart from that, if you look at, in recent times, there are places that have been pointed as flash point areas where violence has been taking place all this while, and there are fears that in some of these areas, elections may not hold. Now INEC is not saying elections will not hold there because the law is very, 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 very clear. If INEC feels that there's a threat, then it could suspend an election, and then if election holds, it could say, okay, if the number of, if the difference between the winner and the loser is not more than the number of persons who did not vote in trouble area, then they can declare the results. So all those arrangements are already there. But apart from the insecurity in the country, it is very important for the police to be neutral. Because if the police is not neutral in an election, it will affect the credibility of the election. We have seen elections conducted in some states where the police were believed to have supported some political parties or supported some groups. And at the end, you read reports, especially the reports by monitoring groups. They say, look, the police saw talks carrying out some activities, but they didn't do anything. And if, an election takes place and people feel that they are cheated, it could lead to riot, lead to protest and all this. So that's why I'm thinking that the message that Buhari sent, to the police that they should demonstrate neutrality in the election is a very crucial, it's an important message.
Also, at the same function yesterday, the IGP said Odua agitators, IPOB, bandits' activities are threats to the polls. Now, what else can be done in this very short period to ensure that election holds peacefully all over the country?
Well, I think the important thing is for the electoral umpire to work with the security operatives and ensure that, you see, all the flashpoints, all the area that there could be crisis, enough security is deployed. Because if you know that Odua or IPOB or whatsoever, you know that they are possible threats to the election, it means that you have to deploy security in those areas, not to go and begin to arrest them, but to ensure that these threats don't, I mean, there's no violence in those areas. I think that is the important thing, you know. But then INEC has a lot of challenges, especially the issue of logistics. I don't know, I've not read the story. I don't know if it talked about it. The issue of logistics. You see, we don't want to show whereby on the election day, especially the presidential election, some communities will say, oh, we did not receive ballot papers, or I mean, INEC officials are not on ground, and also in terms of logistics, a lot of things need to be put in place so that people are not disenfranchised on the election day.
While talking about the logistics, I think from there we'll go straight to the Naira crisis at this point. I mean, you know, INEC had earlier complained, and when he met with the CBN governor, that this Naira crisis could also cause problems for him during the elections because there are some people he will need to pay and all of that. And the lead story of the Daily Trust says banks ignore Supreme Court, reject old notes. Until now, there's still the crisis of the new Naira notes. What do you make of that?
Well, my own take is that, you see, the new Naira note was a political decision. And I mean, it's the CBN that has the rule, you know, to implement or to dictate monetary policies. It's not just the court, you know. So we expected that the CBN would come out to say, well, this is what the Supreme Court has said, we are going to, I mean, implement it. And then the cash, the old notes, old in quote now, that they've amassed, you know, the governor's forum say confiscated, you know, they are supposed to, we expected that CBN will push these notes to banks and say, look, obey Supreme Court orders, begin to dispense these notes in your ATM machines. If the CBN decides to say, okay, we are going to give banks these old notes to dispense to customers, if you walk to an ATM machine and you can withdraw cash in the old notes, then people will collect it from you. I mean, business people will collect it from you. But in this case, we are not seeing the ATM machine dispensing the old notes. So if they don't dispense the old notes, it means that the old notes have not been brought back to circulation. And so it is the decision of the CBN who should take that step, obeying the Supreme Court orders. If the CBN does not do it, if the CBN does not obey the Supreme Court, then there's no way we can, I mean, come out of this current crisis.
Well, the president also promised that, also asked Nigerians to give him 7 days to address the situation. It's past 7 days. The president hasn't said anything. And then we have a situation where in some states, the banks are not collecting the old notes. Service providers are rejecting it, whereby we have some other states where the governors are shutting down people who are rejecting it. So what do you make of all of this?
But like I said, that you see, the governors are political leaders. You know, it's the CBN that will give the directive that, look, you have to start collecting these old notes. And this, CBN must take that first step by giving the old notes to the banks. You know, if a bank goes to the CBN and says, look, I need money for my ATM, I mean, to dispense to my customers, give them the old notes. And as soon as Nigerians see the old notes coming out of the ATM machine, they will start collecting it. But right now, we don't have the new notes, don't have the old notes. You know, so there is confusion.
You also have even the courts rejecting the old notes.
Even the court,
so
okay, I think there's
a rider here on this day newspaper that says court is rejecting old banknotes.
It's an irony that the court the Supreme Court declared that, look, the old note should be in circulation, and then even the court is rejecting it. So I'm calling on the CBN, you know, to do the right thing. You see, it's good to go cashless, but I've not seen any society where people are denied of access to their phone because of a cashless policy. You know, there's no society where, I don't know, even in developed societies.
So the CBN is blaming this on hoarding, by some persons. According to the
now, if people are holding
EFCC chair, he says 400 billion naira new notes, cash, have been issued to banks.
Yes.
So, I mean, where is that 400 billion naira?
Now, the issue is that the CBN collected over 2 trillion, is that not? And pushed 400 billion into circulation. Now, if you put 400 billion to circulation and there's scarcity, it follows that people will keep whatever they have with them. If you have a new naira note, you may not be willing to spend it. You may just keep, because you are not sure. If you go back to the ATM machine, you will find a new naira note.
Okay, now this is not about people, it's about the banks.
It's about the banks. It's about, you see, I'm thinking that the CBN did not project what could happen if it took that decision. But unfortunately, people have been raising their hands and say, look, you cannot do this at this time. You cannot do, because this is going to lead to so and so implications.
But don't you think that if the CBN goes ahead to print the over 2 trillion that they have taken in old cash and print out the same new cash of more than 2 trillion, isn't it going to defeat the whole essence? The whole idea is to reduce the amount of cash in circulation, isn't it?
You see, I mean, economists have said so much about it. You see, you don't do this thing in a kind of, in a rush. This thing is a gradual process. You know, if you want to reduce the cash in circulation, if you want to change the naira note, now you have to gradually withdraw the old notes. Then you gradually implement policies. For instance, you are saying, okay, Nigerians should not withdraw more than 20,000 naira in a day. Fine. But if I want to withdraw 20,000 naira, I cannot withdraw the 20,000. So, I mean, how is that? If previously I could withdraw 100,000, I just go to an ATM machine, press it maybe 4 or 5 times, the 100,000 will come out. But now, even the 20,000 that you say is my limit, if I go to an ATM machine, I cannot withdraw that money.
Dr.
So,
in your view, what exactly do you think is happening? Because the old notes have been mocked, no new notes, and it doesn't appear. I mean, the Council of State advised that print more notes or redistribute the old ones. You know, people are lamenting daily. The queues are there, yet nothing is done. Why do you think that is so?
It is because even those who implemented the policies did not do, I don't know whether it's risk analysis that I will call it. You know, because when you are implementing a policy, you must do an analysis to know the implications of what you are doing. You know, you have, when you are doing this analysis, you know some of the things that will become like a challenge to its implementation. Sincerely, if you don't have enough new notes in circulation, definitely people will hoard it. The ones that are in circulation. I don't think people, maybe I've not entered into the banking hall, I mean all this while, but I don't think people go into the banking hall now with maybe 200,000 new notes to go and deposit. Anybody who has a new note now is afraid that, look, I won't have access to this new note again. Let me be spending it bit by bit. So, and that is because, you see, even the policy, the CBN's own policy, is not being implemented the way the CBN says it should be. If you say, look, you cannot accept more than 20,000 naira in a day. Now, let that 20,000 naira be available. You go to your ATM machine, you cannot get 20,000 naira. You go to the banking, I mean the counter in the bank, I mean, you go to the banking hall, you cannot access this money.
So is the CBN to be blamed for that?
Well, of course, the CBN is the one in charge. Is the regulator. Is the one that, I mean, decide the policies and is the one who should implement these policies. So the boss stops on the desk of Mefele. You cannot ask Nigerians. In
the event that the CBN has issued the needed amount to the banks, should we still blame the CBN for that?
No, they have to ensure that whatever policy is put in place must be implemented. I'm just an ordinary Nigerian. There's nothing I can do to a bank that did not give me my cash, unless I want me to sue the bank to court. You know, but the CBN has the authority, and the CBN has other security agencies that you can use to monitor, to know who is doing the wrong thing, to punish them and ensure that what it has set as rules and regulations or policies are implemented. But as long as Mimile keeps blaming the banks and Nigerians keep suffering, you know, it means that policy has not properly implemented.
All right, tomorrow the Supreme Court will be hearing the matter proper. Are you hopeful? Do you think that that's where we're going to get a solution to all of this?
I'm thinking that it is not, I don't think it's about the law, you know. I think it's about a political step being taken. I'm thinking that the president and the CBN governor must come down from their high horses and admit that this policy is not working, and they have to do the needful. You see, the majority of Nigerians, you know, are in the informal sector. The informal sector operates with cash. You know, a lot of cash transaction takes place. Even if you are going to implement what I call the cashless policy, there's a way you need to woo these people. The infrastructure need to be put in place. Even right now, I was checking some data recently, and I discovered that the even internet penetration in Nigeria is less than 61%. That means that it's not all parts of the country that has been covered. We talk about internet.
But do you really need internet to do e-transactions? I mean, people have the option of using the USSD.
But how many people are literate to use the USSD code? If you go to many rural areas where many Nigerians who do daily transaction with cash live, how many of them have the kind of mobile phones that you need for e-transaction? And then how many of them can even use the USSD code to make transactions? If you go to rural area, people are being exploited. You know, the POS operators are exploiting them. If your son sends 5,000 naira to you and you go to them, to give you the 5, they will collect 1,000. You say that is their own interest. They collect 500. You know, and if you want to send money to anyone, they will still charge you in rural areas. So these people don't know how to use the USSD code. They don't have internet, and you are saying no, they should do e-transaction. It doesn't work.
All right. There's the story on the front page of the Daily Trust. Still on Chrisland, 26,500 people petitioned Chrisland School over students' death, and the Lagos State government has shut down the school. Less than a year ago, Lagos State government also shut down the school over a scandal. What exactly do you think is going on?
Well, I think it's a big challenge, I mean, to the institution, because it's not good for the institution to be in the news for the bad, I mean, for the wrong reasons. You know, the other time it was one scandal, then this one another scandal. And so I'm thinking that the school, I mean, should reorganize its systems. Like the woman said her daughter was electrocuted, is that not? And the school said no, that...
no, the woman says she doesn't know what happened. The school is saying that,
it's, you know... The father is...
saying that the daughter was electrocuted.
That's yes. What they told him.
Then they are saying, no, the girl said she was not going to do it at her sport, then she agreed to do blah, 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 blah. You know, there has to be a proper investigation. You know, there has to be a proper investigation. Because I'm feeling that it's a high-profile school. You understand? It's a high-profile school. And that is why it is in the news. The people who attend those schools are children of very prominent persons in Lagos. That's why it can be in the news. But then there has to be a proper investigation.
And the question that, and the pain for the parent of the child is that how could a high-profile school such as Chrisland not have emergency response team available in such situations?
She alleged there was no ambulance.
Yes, there was no ambulance, and by her narration, the way and manner in which the child was taken to the hospital for attention and everything, it was done so carelessly. She felt there was no due diligence in terms of making sure that all attention needed is given to the child with urgency, with that sense of urgency. That's based on the narration that she is giving. And so, again, that raises the question of, I mean, if you have schools of that caliber, that parents pay such high amounts for school fees, and yet you do not have, such emergency response available in those schools, then what do we say
actually,
to that?
It's unfortunate that, the girl died. It's very unfortunate. For any parent or every parent, it's very, very painful. It's very, very painful. And when things like that happen, a lot of issues will come up. A lot of, accusing fingers being pointed here and there. you know. But I'm feeling that there has to be a thorough investigation, and Chrisland School should learn from the outcome of such investigation, because it's a very high-profile school, and they shouldn't be careless. You know, if anyone, any staff is found to have not done what he or she ought to do, that person has to be punished. But of course, I will sympathize with the family, condole with them, you know, that at times things like this, they are not things that the school may not be interested in killing any child. Just it's an accident.
Okay.
All right. There's a story of interest here that I would like for us to just talk about before we leave. It's on page 16. It says, Kano man asked for 10 million naira to grant divorce to his wife. So you have this El Arbaka, she's called, I don't know what to say, social media sensation or what. She's called El Arbaka, and she's demanding for some money from her husband to celebrate her birthday, and he refuses to do so. And now they are in court over the matter. He refuses to give the money for birthday, and she decided to pour cold water on him, according to the story. And when she did that, the police arrest her. She's now in court, you know, and she's facing trial. And she is now seeking divorce. And the man says, well, I can't divorce you unless you pay the sum of 10 million naira. It sounds quite hilarious.
According to him, that 10 million naira is what he spent during the marriage preparations and everything. Should you ask for what you spent during marriage? I mean, that has been spent, right?
Well, exactly.
And you married her. She has stayed with you for a while, so... You know. Well,
it's an interesting story. We'll see how the judges will look at the case. Because, I mean, if you spent money during your marriage, I mean, to a woman, of course, the money is gone. You know, you can't go back to the, dressmakers. You can't go back to the food vendors and all those to go and collect the money. It's not possible. But then let's wait to see how the judges look at it. But for you to claim such money, there must be an agreement that, look, if this thing collapses, you're going to pay me back. You know, because for any judge, you know, to deal with the matter, he has to look for evidence of commitment to repay whatever is spent before, during the marriage or during the wedding.
You know, in any case, looking at the very reason why they are even in court, I mean, to start with, the very reason why this whole birthday issue, right? I mean, isn't that so trivial to have caused such, litigation in court, you know, between a couple? Things as mundane as money for birthday. Well, I think if the man decides, I'm not giving money for birthday, is that enough, really, to
now begin to make trouble? Actually, maybe the culture, you know, the culture that we have inherited, I don't know whether it's inheritance, but, you know, there's this culture of showing off. You know, this is my birthday, my husband spoiled me, my husband bought a new car for me, my husband took me to Paris on my birthday, you know. Social media thing is it's like an influence. And I'm thinking that marriage is much more serious than for that kind of a thing. You know, if you are married, it's a lot of commitment. It's not a time to show off and say, look at what my husband did for me, look at what my husband didn't do for me. You know, my husband didn't buy me a birthday cake, so I'm not doing it again. He doesn't love me. I think marriage is much more deeper than such a temporary or one-day pleasure and things like that.
Well, not to say that giving gifts for birthdays is wrong or is bad, but at least I think that there should be some moderation to it, isn't it?
Of course. I mean, you give gifts, appreciate each other, and another way of saying, oh, I thank God for your life, that you are alive, and all this and all that. It's good. No, but it shouldn't break a marriage, a relationship.
Well, especially since today is Valentine's Day.
Okay, it's true.
A lot of people will be looking forward to celebrate Valentine's. And
so give
I hope nobody will get angry and ask for divorce because there's no gift. Or pour water on the husband because there's no gift.
So that's the thing now, that people should understand that, well, I mean, yes, it's important to celebrate each other in love and the rest of them, but there should be some moderation. Let not everything be anchored on it as though if this doesn't happen, then, I mean, if your spouse doesn't take you out, then the marriage is going to end. Or if he doesn't buy Valentine's gift, then the marriage is going to end.
A gift does not need to be too expensive. It's just anything that you think the woman or the man will appreciate. Is that not? I think men are the ones who have to give.
Yes, that's written.
So whatsoever that is written. The woman will appreciate.
Is it only men that wants to give?
Well, the women too should give, but the one that the men should give is written.
You know, on a day like this, men are all guilty. So that you don't become too guilty. You just do something.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Dr. Abba, for joining us on the newspaper review for today. We look forward to having you again.
Thank you very much.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Well, that's where we'll end this segment of the program. We'll be taking a short breather, and then when we return, it will be top of the hour. We'll take a look at the headlines again and much more on the program. Join us again.
Ina kake dan Najeriya? Baka da labarin Jagaba Ahmad Bola Tinubu a yanzu shike gaba kan gaba a cikin 'yan takara a ƙasa Najeriya dake da sassanin asalin sanin mukaman mulki da kuma samun da waraka ga rayuwar al'ummar Najeriya. Jagaba shike da sassanin asalin sanin hanyoyin tattalin arzikin ƙasa a Najeriya. Jagaba Bola Ahmad Tinubu magabata suka ce shi a ƙwararren direban da zai ceto rayuwar al'ummar Najeriya a shekara ta 2023. Batun dawo da martabar ilimi, noma, kiwo da batun tsaro a Najeriya game da samarwa matasa ayyukan yi maganin fatara da zaman kashe wando. Haka ina ga batun daidaito a tsakanin kabilu da mabiya addinai daban-daban a ƙasa Najeriya. Nan ma magabata suka ce Jagaba shi ke kan gaba. To yanzu dan masani ina mafita hanya tsani domin a barje a baya? Amsar dai ita ce Jagaba Bola Ahmad Tinubu shine kankat cikin dubun dubatan 'yan takara a Najeriya da ke neman shugabancin ƙasa daga kanshi sai dai ka sha wafa.
Wannan sako ne daga sashen tsare-tsare da sadarwa na kwamitin yakin neman zaben shugaban ƙasa na jam'iyyar APC.
Allah mu ne gaba. Jagaba shi
Thank you for staying with us. It's top of the hour. Let's take a look at the headlines on Daybreak this morning. Wike versus Atiku. PDP suspends presidential rally in Rivers.
Naira scarcity. Again, Buhari meets Emefiele at Aso Rock.
Police detain pastor who stormed pulpit with AK-47.
Now let's take a look at the details. The Presidential Campaign Council of Atiku Okowa in Rivers State has cancelled the rally scheduled for February 14, 2023. Senator Lee Maiba, who spoke on behalf of the Campaign Council in Port Harcourt on Monday, said the rally would no longer hold in Rivers because of security reasons. Maiba said Atiku Abubakar, the presidential candidate, informed the team that he does not want any bloodshed in Rivers State, hence the decision to cancel the rally. Recall that last week, chairman of the PDP Presidential Campaign Council in Rivers, Dr. Abiye Sekibo, was attacked in Port Harcourt. Sekibo had accused policemen attached to the Rivers State Government House of being behind the incident, but Governor Nyesom Wike denied it.
All right. Now, President Muhammadu Buhari held another meeting with Governor of the Central Bank of Nigeria, Godwin Emefiele, at the State House in Abuja on Monday. This is Emefiele's third private meeting with the president since the cash crunch crisis escalated across the country. The raging controversy over the implementation of the new currency redesign policy has not subsided. Now, last Friday, the Council of State had backed the new currency redesign policy, but advised the Central Bank of Nigeria to ensure the availability of Naira notes to douse tension and ameliorate the suffering of citizens across the country. The governor, however, did not speak to journalists after the meeting.
Pastor Uche Aigbe of the House on the Rock Church in Abuja is currently being detained by the Federal Capital Territory Police Command. It also told Daily Trust that the pastor arrived at the Guzape office of the Anti-Crime Unit of Police on Monday morning in company of the policeman from whom he collected the rifle he mounted the pulpit with. The pastor caused a stir during Sunday service when he mounted the pulpit with the rifle. Earlier, Olumoyiwa Adejobi, first public relations officer, had said the pastor had a case to answer. In a series of tweets, Adejobi said AK-47 rifle falls under the prohibited firearms in Nigeria and only certain law enforcement officers were allowed to carry it. He said he had forwarded complaint over the pastor's action to the FCT police commissioner to act.
Now, to some packages this morning, the Independent National Electoral Commission says that the forthcoming general elections will not hold in 240 polling units across 28 states and the Federal Capital Territory for not having registered voters. The INEC chairman, Mahmoud Yakubu, at a meeting with the national leaders of political parties in Abuja on Monday, said that the February and March election would now hold in 176,606 polling units instead of 176,846 polling units nationwide. Take a look.
Yakubu recalled that in 2021, the Commission successfully expanded the number of polling units from 119,973 to the current figure of 176,846. He said that efforts were also made to distribute voters to the polling units in order to avoid the congestion that made voting cumbersome in many of the polling units nationwide.
There are 240 polling units without registered voters spread across 28 states and the Federal Capital Territory. They range from 1 polling unit to 12 polling units in each state and the FCT, except Taraba and Imo states, with 34 and 38 polling units respectively. No new registrants choose the polling units and no voters indicated interest to transfer to them during the last continuous voter registration exercise, mainly for security reasons. From the feedback we received from our officials and accredited voters following the recent nationwide mock accreditation using the beavers, it is clear that some voters could not easily identify their polling units. This must not happen on election day. Consequently, the Commission is advising voters to confirm the locations of their polling units through a dedicated portal linked to our website. In addition, all voters who have been assigned to new polling units will receive text messages from the Commission indicating their polling units. We have also compiled the register of such voters, and our state offices will give it wide publicity, especially for those who may not have provided their telephone numbers during voter registration or those whose numbers may have changed.
The National Chairman, Inter-Party Advisory Council IPAC, Yagbagi Sani, appealed to INEC to ensure that general election hold as scheduled. Sani would reaffirm the council's confidence in the leadership of INEC for its consistent demonstration of diligence, urged the commission to make the general elections credible.
2023 general elections seemingly will be a watershed in the history of elections in Nigeria. Today, the tide has changed because an unknown party could pull a surprise to the greatest chagrin of all. From this point of view, it is necessary to advise INEC to keep its date with history, which must not be wasted.
Meanwhile, the United States Assistant Secretary of State for Bureau of African Affairs, Molly Fee, and the U.S. Ambassador to Nigeria, Mary Beth Leonard, have visited the Commission's headquarters, where the Assistant Secretary of State restated the importance of having a peaceful election.
I do want to make clear that the United States does not back any candidate or party. We back the process. We back democracy.
On the ongoing electionary campaigns, Yakubu expressed INEC concerns about the violent attacks on supporters of political parties across board and appealed to the leaders of political parties to continue to call their candidates and supporters to order. Noel Samson, Trust TV News, Abuja.
Thank you, Noel, for that report. The federal government says it is determined to ensure that every kobo spent is tracked and accounted for as part of efforts to strengthen transparent and institutional accountability in Nigeria. Minister for State Budget and National Planning, Clem Agba, stated this at a dialogue to sensitize national and subnational stakeholders on the importance of national monitoring in Abuja. Let's take the report.
Despite increased commitment and allocation to women economic empowerment programs as well as other projects and policies in Nigeria, there remains an existing gap among ministries, departments and agencies at federal and state levels implementing these programs without performance monitoring indicators and no scientific framework for assessment of performance for socioeconomic benefits to the people.
We are not insisting that agencies must be created. The departments which are currently running the program or and the projects and performing the role of M&E should be given some level of independence for them to perform their responsibilities. Subsuming them into a structure that makes them makes it very difficult for them to operate is the issue that we're raising.
We have disaggregated data that can help us to have indicators of how these policies and programs actually affect women and impact on the process of women's economic empowerment.
The Ministry of Finance, Budget and National Planning says the National Development Plan document 2021 to 2025 had provisions for monitoring and evaluation, while the federal government upgraded its monitoring and evaluation framework by involving citizens in its projects by creating the iMark app, launched last December.
Ministries, departments, and agencies are to coordinate M&E functions across departments and related agencies, prepare a performance improvement plan based on the findings and recommendations of the monitoring report. They will prepare quarterly and biannual reports on the performance of the respective MDAs and submit such reports to the National M&E Department.
Stakeholders are deliberating on strategies that will facilitate the acceptance and implementation of the National Monitoring and Evaluation Policy on Women's Economic Empowerment.
We are ready to work with the government and other partners to strengthen data collection, especially disaggregated data, and other monitoring and evaluation activities to aid evidence-based decision-making.
We talk about customer centrism, we talk about engaging, we talk about data centrism. It has both populations and especially women at the center. So it's a policy that I am happy to take back to the Federal Inland Revenue.
The National Monitoring and Evaluation Policy launch is designed to provide a standardized monitoring and evaluation of projects to empower citizens to track the implementation of investments at the national and sub-national levels. Aisha Salihu, Trust TV News, Abuja.
All right, now let's take a look at our next discussion on the program. Africa's most populous nation, that's Nigeria, will be heading to the polls on February 25 for the seventh time in 24 years of uninterrupted democratization. Yet the upcoming presidential election is taking place amid deep economic hardship, record unemployment and inflation, persistent fuel shortages and repression of civic spaces, and worsening security conditions, particularly for the country's youth. The hugely consequential outcome will determine the country's demographic and democratic future. We'll be talking about this with a diplomat. He is Dr. Elijah Oyegba. He is Nigerian ambassador to Burundi, who joins us via Zoom from Bujumbura to talk more on this. Thank you so much for joining us, Dr. Elijah, on Africa Update today.
Thank you so very much. It's my pleasure. Thank you, Nigerians.
Now let's start with the significance of this election in Nigeria to the African continent. What does it imply?
Well, thank you very much. Nigeria calls itself or prides itself, and therefore must become a leader in the continent in very many fronts. Transition from one democratic government to another is a call to duty for the leadership of Nigeria. And you remember that when the president, His Excellency President Muhammadu Buhari, was speaking at the December or November concluded US-Africa Leaders Summit, that he made a commitment to the world at that stage to say that there must be a peaceful transition of power come February and May 2023 in Nigeria. So we've had, since 1999, you've seen that there has always been a peaceful transition. So it is one of the things that Nigeria prides itself with. And for us in the continent, it's very important that that culture is maintained, and that's political stability in the country. So this is yet one of those opportunities for us to prove to Africa and indeed to the world that we are indeed a stable democracy. So that's basically the position of Nigeria as we move into this election. And a lot of African countries are also looking towards Nigeria to show and demonstrate that leadership by having a peaceful election and then transiting from one democratic leadership to another. So that's the position, and that's the way we view it across the continent.
All right, Ambassador, the INEC has promised to do everything possible to ensure that the elections hold. The president has also promised to ensure a peaceful transition of power. However, we still have pockets of the country where we have crisis, especially the zone that you come from, the Southeast. We still have people burning INEC offices and all of that. To what extent do you think this could impact the election?
Security, Stella, thank you very much. Security is a very important element in every electoral process. But I also tell you that, yes, it's a big issue. It's not just in the southeastern part of the country. Across the length and breadth of Nigeria, we are having security challenges. And you know that it's not even a challenge of today. This is a challenge that has been and has metamorphosed over time within the country. For 2015 elections, it came in the form of taking territories in some part of the country. A couple of local governments across Adamawa, Borno, Yobe were not even accessible to the people of Nigeria. So incidentally, at this point in time, this security challenge has, reared its ugly head and has metamorphosed into taking of, kidnapping and all kinds of agitations coming, here and there. The case of Southeast is basically the case of agitation, the Eastern Security Network challenge alongside the agitators for Biafra, who are basically saying that there shouldn't be election in this area. We find it in some parts of Anambra State. We find this in some parts of Imo State and some skirmishes in Enugu, Ebonyi, and Abia, as the case may be. However, the responsibility of leaders at all levels, religious, family, political, at every level, is basically to tell the people or to educate the people to say that this is an opportunity for you to, get involved in the selection process and ensure that the people you vote for at every level are people that have got the credibility to do what is required for Nigeria, and indeed for your states or federal constituency or state constituency, as the case may be. So it's not just about the leadership of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. It's about the leadership of at the state constituency level. It's about the leadership at the National Assembly, at both, chambers. And it's also about the leadership of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. So yes, it's a bit of a concern because what you find in this kind of environment is that we are likely to find a situation where, despite the noise, despite the social media frenzy, the participation will not be as much as it should. And I give you an example. In 2021, when we had Anambra State governorship elections, we have about 2.5 million registered voters in Anambra State, but the people that turned out to vote in the election was less than 400,000. So if you do the numbers, you find out that that is not even enough to determine, it's not even up to 20% of the registered voters that determined who the governor eventually became. So these are the arguments that the leaders are putting on the table, that people like us are saying, listen, we understand, you may be angry in one way or the other, but the right thing to do is not to begin to destroy things or begin to kill one another in order to drive home your point. If you kill somebody to drive home your point, the person is late already. So in most cases, you don't even end up, you just scare the rest of people from coming close to that area. And at the end of the day, democratic process means that someone must emerge. So the earlier we begin to understand that it's important for us to have a level playing ground where we do not scare people, where non-state actors are not taking responsibility for keeping law and order in a particular area, and allow people to freely express their views by way of going to the polls and electing the people that should be the leaders. So I hear you loud and clear that there are security challenges. It is without a doubt, but I believe very much that the commitment of the president and that of INEC and of course the security agencies is to ensure that we have a free and fair elections in the country come 25th, and of course the second round of election that comes after 2 weeks.
Okay, there are those who may say, well, the commitment of the president may not necessarily be enough in ensuring that we have a free, fair and transparent election, especially if you look at attacks on opposition parties in some states. How is this message or this stand of the president translating or transmitted to other key players in this election at the subnational level, for instance? Does it show really willingness and commitment to ensure that the elections are violence-free, going by this attack?
Oh, thank you. Thank you, my brother. I think something has to be very clear here. The body language of the president, and indeed that of the presidency, towards anything electoral process since he even came to power in 2015 is very clear. This is a president that has never interfered in any electoral process. This is a president that, is always the first to call a governor or someone that is just, been elected by the people, irrespective of a political party. We saw this in Osun State. We saw this, and indeed quite a lot of elections that has happened in the country. So even opposition cannot accuse the president of, not having the will to conduct a free, fair, and credible elections. So this is very clear, and you hear that, when opposition speaks. You hear they always go out to commend the president for his posture, with respect to having a free and fair elections conducted in Nigeria. And I honestly do believe that the president wants to bequeath this free and fair election as, a legacy to the country. And indeed, it's also one of the things he benefited, because election was conducted, he won, and the sitting president at the time called him to congratulate him. So I think that it's also one of the things that brought him to power that he would also want to pass on to the next incoming government. But
how about,
the challenge is not even from the leadership position, the way I see it. The challenge is from the actors in the political space, which is the political parties themselves. In Nigeria, sometimes it looks as though it should be a do or die affair. The presidency, the law enforcement agents are always willing to ensure a free and level playing ground for everybody. But I believe that that posture will need to also get to the actors, those running for elections, those that are stakeholders in the political space, to also say, hey, listen, control your people, because these talks are not unleashed by the government of the day. They are not unleashed by INEC. They are not unleashed by security agencies. Political thuggery, some of these non-state actors that get involved in political process is a creation of political parties. So I think that caution must be placed and brought to bear to warn all the political actors to respect the process, to respect the will of the people. Right. We are Democrats and believe that the will of the people must be respected at all times.
All right. Even the U.S. government recently threatened a visa ban for anyone who undermines the democratic process. Now, as a diplomat yourself, every election cycle, this threat of ban or visa ban comes up. Do you think it ever helps? Has it
No,
ever changed,
first of all, First of all, I don't necessarily agree, to the threat that usually comes from the U.S. and some of these other external forces, basically saying, you don't have to come to our country and so on and so forth. I think this is even some level of interference in our electoral processes. I think that Nigerians must speak to themselves and understand that we have grown in leaps and bounds. This is an electoral process that we observed that has moved from writing of results to a point where rigging election in Nigeria is practically impossible at this point in time. In 1999, in 2023, in 2003, in 2007, can you hear me? Can I go ahead?
Please. Yes, go ahead.
Yes, in 2003, 2007, elections will still be going on, and the results are already announced in radio stations and TV stations. So we have moved from that point where people did not at that time think that their votes could matter, or that their wishes could be respected by the people, to a point where overvoting. In the event of overvoting, that particular polling unit is cancelled. In the event of some kind of skirmishes or some kind of interference in a particular polling unit, that vote is cancelled. So we have we are not where we should be, but definitely we are not where we used to be. So I think that we are evolving, and we've seen consistent progress. We moved from a situation where we had just a card reader to a point where we are now having a BVAS device that accredits, has eliminated what we call the incidence form previously. So you can see that consistent and steady progress. So I believe that it's us. Nobody's going to help us develop our country than ourselves. External bans and all of these things, in my opinion, shouldn't even be coming at this point in time.
Okay, Dr. Elijah, but you cannot divorce the role that the international community has played in getting us to where we are today, democratically speaking, can you?
No, I can't. Let me tell you, you see, in the space where we operate, one of the things, or one of the rules in the diplomatic space is non-interference. Sometimes I've seen a situation where, I think sometime in 2015, before 2015 elections, the Secretary of State from the U.S. Came visiting to Nigeria. John Kerry a couple of times, met with the actors at that point in time. Even the President Obama had to speak to the people of Nigeria. All of these things are subtle ways and means of interference in the country's electoral process. We are a sovereign nation, for crying out loud. I do not think that it's out of, love for the country and all of that. Yeah, they have gone ahead to do these things, but I'm saying that it's actually not acceptable. You can imagine if President Buhari has to make a speech to the people of America on the eve of their election to tell them what to do or what not to do. I mean, it's okay to, America sees itself as a watchdog of the world. They get involved in some of these things. But in the actual process, that is, in the actual sense of it, this is some kind of interference. And it happens at all levels. And that's why sometime late last year, when some ambassadors were presenting their letters of credence, there was a stern warning from the president to say, listen, focus on your diplomatic duties and do not get involved in our political process. I have seen a lot of ambassadors going to, meet with INEC and meet with some civil society organizations on these electoral issues. And I recently had in this your station this morning, the U.S. ambassadors saying, listen, we do not support any political party. We do not support any candidate. We only support the process. So that should be the posture. The process is what needs to be supported, and not try to speak for one candidate the other house.
Yeah. So I'm talking about in showing support for the process, in showing support for civic engagement and the rest of them. Don't you think that the international community is playing a positive role in that regard? Not necessarily interference, but in these areas of strengthening the processes.
Well, like I said, for the process, it's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. Quite a lot of players in this space will always want to tell you that they are also for the process. But one of the things we've seen over the years, even in a lot of African countries, is that there's always external interference. If you go to, some West African countries where we've had coups these days, there's always some level of interference trying to upturn a sitting government, But like I said, we have also seen participation. These international communities try to get some NGOs formed, try to find a way to incite them against a sitting government. And we've seen them in various forms of shapes. But we're saying, listen, we know the difference between rain, and when you pour water on the ground. Where there is a genuine intention to support the process, we are all in for it. But the situation where we are also, we begin to see or insinuate or observe that things are going over the line, we also call the attention of the community or the particular player to say, no, I think we think that you are exceeding your bounds in this area. Okay. But yeah, to support the process, it is what I believe the responsibility of the international community should be limited to. Engagement is important, but believe you me, the engagement of having the people support the process by themselves. Like I said before, every Nigerian knows that right now that their votes can count. Every Nigerian knows that this president is not, going to interfere with the result of any elections. And I believe that if the election is declared today, I'm sure the president, irrespective of the person that wins the election, will pick up a phone, call and congratulate the person so that there will be sanity in the system. We've made that progress as a nation. So we're just basically calling on the international community. Right, yes, Ambassador. We know you can ban people from coming towards, to your country, but also know the limits for which you express these views. For us, it's important that we allow the will of the people in the Federal Republic of Nigeria to come, to fruition. All right. And that is by way of allowing for free and credible elections.
All right, Ambassador, I'm sure you understand, you know that the word Japa was popularized last year, and even till date is still there. Yes. People are still leaving the country for greener pastures, as it were. To what extent do you think this election, the outcome of this election, will contribute to maybe stemming the tide of people just going out of the country?
I'm a diplomat, and one of the things we do a lot is to travel around. Japa it became very popular in Nigeria in the last 2 years. Let me just say that. But one of the things you find is that a lot of people travel because of lots of issues ranging from security to unemployment to thinking that the grass is always greener on the other side of the divide. I understand that. And quite a lot of young people are also getting frustrated, I must also admit, because from leadership perspective, the work of a leader is basically to present hope to the people and try to work, especially with the younger people, to let them see reasons for joining in the struggle. But we've seen a lot of people that leave Nigeria in the form of, trying to get greener pastures everywhere. But as an experienced traveler and someone that is also in this space, part of the things we know is that things are not always the way they seem. Whether you are in the UK or you're in America or you're in Canada, there is no place like home. One of the things we find, even when you move across the length and breadth of Africa, from West Africa, is that you find a lot of, Nigerians that are imprisoned in most of these countries in the world. As I speak to you today, there are about 1,500 Nigerians in prison in Malaysia. So people actually run out of the country, thinking that it's safer out there, but they also get there to find out that it's not as easy as they think. But again, the outcome of this election basically must also be to begin to orientate our people, particularly the younger ones, to say that there is no place like home. We know it. And Nigeria is a country where even your brother can come to your house without giving you an invitation, and you cannot even, stop him from entering the house. Nigeria is a country where people just absorb people from wherever they come from based on their family ties. So clearly, I see that happen. It is not, something that we can shy away from. It's a major challenge. People are running out of the country in droves. And it's important that, they also see this election as the will of the people. people. Because once the will of the people, I mean, in democracy, the minority will always have their say, but majority will have their way. Most importantly is to have a peaceful process that brings about a leader that is popular, because in democracy, it's actually popularity. So once people cannot question the processes of the election, what you're going to find is that people will respect the process. And then we have also looked at the manifestos of
thank you, Doctor.
The leaders in this process. Yes.
All right. Thank you, Doctor. Thank you. We have to vote in there. Thank you for joining us on Daybreak and sharing your perspectives. Unfortunately, we've run out of time.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right.
Thank you very much. It's my pleasure.
Dr. Elijah Oyegba, he is the Nigerian ambassador to Burundi. He joins us virtually from Bujumbura. Now, we'll take a short breather, and then when we return, we'll take a look at another discussion on the program. Join us again.
TV, documenting the Nigerian story.
All right, welcome back. You're watching the Daybreak on Trust TV. Now, a study has revealed that minorities may still elect the next government in 2023, and that voter ignorance or low voter education in the face of seeming voter awareness may mar the much-hyped 2023 election. World Trust Foundation, a non-governmental organization with the headquarters in Port Harcourt, South, said its studies show that much voter education is still highly needed, especially in rural areas. We'll be talking about this. And we have two gentlemen in the studio, a public affairs analyst, Jide Ojo, and also Suleiman Monday of the Transition Monitoring Group. They both join us here in the studio. Thank you so much for joining us on Daybreak this morning.
Thank you.
Well, it's 11 days to the elections and quite a lot of permutations here and there. Let me start with you, Mr. Jide Ojo. Are you surprised at the turn of events as they are happening around this period of time?
Very surprised. Very surprised that even electoral violence, the twin challenge of fuel scarcity and naira scarcity has taken up the shine of electoral violence, which was the main issue being discussed a couple of months back. Now people are talking about access to their own money, which is made very difficult. I woke up this morning to read one of the papers, and they say because of the state of suspended animation that the country is, even banks are now rejecting collection of old naira notes.
Even courts?
Courts.
We saw a story this morning.
Fueling stations. Now, I shouldn't expect this in 11 days to election. It never so happened. I've been observing elections since 1999 in this country. Never have I seen an INEC chairman, previous, going to plead with the GMD of NNPC to please make fuel available for their operational vehicles. Never have I seen INEC chairman leaving the core responsibilities of planning and executing elections, going to plead with the CBN governor to please make money available, saying that majority of their vendors do not have bank accounts. So the assurances have been given to INEC chairman, we will make as much money as you may need. But what about you and I? You people will possibly be on the streets. You are not going to be trekking wherever you are deployed to. You're going to be needing operational vehicles to move around. I, as an observer, will need vehicles. So if you take care of INEC and refuse to take care of journalists, take care of security agencies, take care of polling agents, take care of other ancillary, stakeholders, are you going to say you have done a very great job? So the challenge, the twin challenge we have now on our hands shouldn't have been expected for an election eve that we are. But then we are in a season of anomie. And in a season of anomie, anything happens. Anything can happen. However, speaking to the issue of lack of sufficient voter education, I tend to disagree. It's not so much as people, it's not so much that there have not been sustained voter education, at least primarily from INEC, civil society organization, and media. I may say, okay, the core beneficiary, which is the political party and contestants, may not have done enough, given the fact that they are primarily focusing on rallies and getting people to understand their manifesto. But at least INEC has spent tremendous resources. Don't forget, as at last week, National Broadcasting Commission said we have 740 broadcast stations in Nigeria. As of today, 740 radio and television. Now, you know how much you charge on Trust TV. Mm-hmm. So just imagine 1 billion naira spread across these 740
broadcast stations. You have not talked about road shows. You've not talked about neighbor to neighbor, door to door, that are also ancillary to that. So at the end of the day, no matter the enormity of resources you have, it pales into insignificance. But we know organizations that have supported INEC in also even paying for political education, jingles, and adverts.
So, Mr.
Organizations like CGG, like Young Africa.
The picture you're painting is that so much has been done in the area of voter education.
Exactly.
If you look at the Daily Trust editorial for today, it says, 2023, Nigerians, please vote. That editorial was based on the fact that the last election, the turnout was about 30-something%.
34, 35%.
Exactly. That was why the editorial had to say, Nigerians, please vote. So if all of this is out there, why are people not coming out to vote? Why did we have such a decline last year?
Now,
last election.
Now, this is it. The problem is with the system. And when I say the system, this is what I mean. I will run across 5 different reasons why there is low voter turnout. One is insecurity. People are scared for their lives. Look at the madness that is going on in Southeast. I read overnight, another court has been raised with call files and all of that. Police stations, policemen killed.
Okay.
So no, they just gave me 30 seconds to run through. Insecurity, the fact that you run election for just 6 hours, 8:30 a.m. to 2:30 p.m. In other climes, like in US, you run election for 12 to 13 hours. Then there will be lockdown. Then there is no provision for early voting. Then there is no provision for prisoners to vote. Then there is no provision for out-of-country voting or diaspora voting. So when you look at all of this put together, no mail-in ballot, no. So you look at all of this, and then no matter how much you invested in voter education, without multiple choices for people to be able to participate, you will continue to have below average turnout.
All right. Well, let's take a look at other issues. You mentioned security, and I want Suleiman Monday to talk about this. Yesterday, we saw that the president commissioned certain strategic and operational equipments for the Nigerian police force. We saw APCs, we saw certain vehicles, that will be deployed by the police for the elections and the rest of them. In terms of curbing violence in the process, already leading up to the elections, we are seeing attack on opposition parties and the rest of them. How prepared are we really for this 2023 election in making sure that it's violence-free?
Well, thank you very much. I think the most important thing when it comes to issues of elections is that we have free, fair, credible, transparent, and all-inclusive elections. Without peace, of course, we cannot have the kind of election that we want as a democratic nation. And of course, security is an aspect that needs to be looked into when it comes to issues of elections in this country, especially looking at the fact that we are battling with so much insecurity in Nigeria. I think so much needs to be done when it comes to ensuring that there is peace, there is peaceful conduct of the 2023 general elections, considering the fact that many Nigerians, like we just talked about voter education, and one of the factors that repels Nigerians to come out and vote is, of course, insecurity, like my senior guest here talked about. Insecurity, right? It's one of the factors that repels Nigerians to come out and vote. So it is absolutely necessary for us as a country to take a major step in ensuring that we curb the excesses of this insecurity.
Do you think that we are seeing as much commitment from other stakeholders, say maybe the political parties, for instance, to take the position that the president appears to be taking of leaving a legacy of a transparent, peaceful election as he leaves? Are we seeing that go down to other stakeholders at other levels?
Of course, the commitment of Mr. President that he will leave a legacy of free, fair, transparent, and credible election is a good one. And this is an example that every patriotic Nigerian should learn from. But of course, we have seen from the campaigns of other stakeholders, like other political parties, from their campaigns, all they do is attack each other. All they do is hate speeches. All they do is, they are not basing their campaigns based on issue-based campaigns. That's what we have been advocating for as an organization that wants free, fair, credible elections. Look into yourselves and bring out issues that will help Nigerians vote for you. Issues that will convince Nigerians to have confidence in you, right? These are issue-based campaigns, but that we are seeing the contrary of that. All we are seeing is hate speeches, one attacking another, this party attacking this party. This significantly adds up to the issues of insecurity, because we need to be preaching peace, right? As political parties, as media, as civil society organizations, we need to be preaching peace, how to conduct these elections peacefully, right? Okay. Rather than talking about attacking each other so that we can insinuate violence when it comes to elections.
All right. During the voter registration, a lot of people trooped out and got registered. But even at the close of the period given to collect the PVCs, so many PVCs were still left with at INEC offices. That's on the one hand. Then there are some Nigerians who keep insisting that, oh, I'm not going to vote because my vote will not count. What do you do to ensure that it gets better? Because already those who didn't collect their PVCs will not vote. Then there are some that even have the PVCs that are saying, oh, even if I vote, it's not going to count.
Absolutely. It all boils down to good governance, right? Doing the right things in the system, right? We have to truly look into ourselves. This is what we have been advocating for. We have to be accountable as individuals, as groups, as organizations, as a country. We have to always sit down and examine ourselves. What are we doing, or what are we doing wrong? And then do things right, okay? It goes to say that the effect of bad governance that the people are feeling at the moment, you understand, that is what triggers them not to come out and vote, you understand, because they believe that their votes don't count. Even if I vote, you understand, the people that I vote, the moment that they left me, they leave, they win the elections, that's the end of it. They will never ever look at where I am again until the next round of elections.
All right. Mr. Jide, a case in point here, talking about security and violence, having a level playing field for everyone in this season. We have the Wike Atiku feud. The PDP decided to suspend presidential rally in Rivers State on the grounds of security concerns. So again, what do you make of this story and amidst all that we have been saying?
Exactly part of the reason why there will not be huge turnout of voters. Former Minister of Transport, Dr. Abiy Sakibu, over the weekend claimed that he was attacked, that there was an assassination attempt at him, and he had pictures of his bullet-ridden vehicles to show. And now PDP Atiku campaign is cancelling holding rally there to avoid bloodbath. Let me say, as a rider to what my colleague here said earlier, part of what I didn't hope to see on this eve of election is what is playing out. There is no amount you invest in voter education. When you see things like this, that's happening in Rivers, that's happening in Anambra, in Imo, in many parts of the country, you are not having confidence to say you want to brave the odds. You don't want to be a martyr. Yesterday, INEC chairman says election will not hold in 240 polling units. Why did he say that?
There are no registered voters there. But they don't have registered voters there now.
I say, INEC chairman was being clever by making that statement that because nobody picked those 240 polling units. The truth is that those 240 polling units are insecure. Why did I say that, Stella? The law permits INEC to distribute voters into all the polling units. The law is on the side of INEC. There are people, okay, INEC is saying, go and check your name. I've moved you to some places. I've created additional 52,000 polling units. So we now have 176,846. But this was a release on Sunday, that where there is overcrowding, we have decided to move some voters into those areas. So if INEC has the power to redistribute, why didn't they redistribute into those 240 if they were not bothered about security concerns? The primary reason is that right from October last year, when we met with INEC chairman last, at the level of civil society, he had raised this concern. There were supposed to be over 30 by-elections before this general election that is just about a week away. And they could not conduct those elections in San Francisco. And let me land on this. Did you know, Ayuba, that the Nigerian police got 64 billion for election security in this election that is about to? 64 billion only. I mean, a loan for election security. So when you see all those gadgets that the president is commissioning, it's because they are well resourced, but it's coming late in the day. These gadgets should have been there at least 3 months to election, and make sure that people perceive that the environment is calm enough for them to come out and vote.
Mr. GJ, do you think that perhaps there's a deliberate attempt by the political class to create this tension in the atmosphere for whatever reason, going by the statements that we've heard from some of them? For instance, one of them is being interrogated by the DSS for making claim about, so you hear all those kind of things, and you hardly would hear actually any arrest and like proper prosecution of people engaging in such things.
Hate speeches, fake news, disinformation, misinformation has been the trademark of politicians from time immemorial. And it's not peculiar to Nigeria anyway. Even in US, ahead of that last, the 2020 presidential election in US, you know the amount of disinformation that the different camps of the Democratic candidate and the Republican candidate were dishing out to the American public. So much so that at some point, Twitter had to suspend the account of the incumbent president of US, then Donald Trump. Why? Because of disinformation and misinformation that he was using that platform to project. So the issue is not about being surprised. I'm not surprised because I will only have been surprised if they don't do it. I've been a student of politics. I read politics up to postgraduate level. But it's not about that. It's what I've seen on the field since 1999. This is my 24th year monitoring election in this country. So I know at every electoral season, they always do this because they are using what is called Machiavellian principle of the end justifies the means. Just get the power, whichever way you can get.
So is this untamable? The other time the IGP was raising concern about, in fact, he was specific about governors. So these are high profile people, right? Is it something that we can check, Suleiman? Is this something that is beyond, what can be handled?
Well, I would like to respond to, I absolutely disagree with the fact that, it's not all about voter education, you understand? That is a very important factor, you understand, that we must look into. And I will tell you why. In every election, there is what we call election cycle, and there are, this election cycle comprises of 3 phases or 3 stages.
So I'll just hasten you up just a minute to round up your points so that we can go.
Just like we have the pre-election phase, the election phase, and the post-election phase, right? And in all these phases, all these stages, we need to have significant, voter education. But most importantly is civic education, right? Because voter education is all about like dissemination of information, materials, programs, you understand, to inform voters who, when, where, and how to vote, you understand. But civic education is a broader concept that entails, you understand, understanding the political context and the political system of a given country, right? Yeah. So I think we need to look into these issues, you understand, because without much voter education, I think we cannot have citizens come out and vote.
Thank you so much, Suleiman Mande of the Transition Monitoring Group, for joining us on Daybreak and sharing your perspectives, and also Public Affairs Analyst Jide Ojo. We thank you for joining us and sharing with us your perspectives. Unfortunately, because of time, we have to end the show at this point. You can join us again tomorrow for another time on the program, and also catch us across all social media and our YouTube live stream. My name is Ayuba Ila. Thanks for watching.
Thank you for joining us this morning. My name is Stella Iyaji. Join us same time, same station tomorrow. For now, do have a very pleasant day.